In the year 1587, before the English colonists ever set foot on Roanoke Island, the land belonged to the Croatan people. They knew the island well. Every tree, every shadow, every whisper of the wind. And they knew to stay away from the western marshes after dark. The elders spoke of Awendela, the bone woman, who had walked those marshlands for 2,000 years. She was neither living nor dead, neither human nor spirit, but something caught between worlds, a punishment for a crime so terrible that even the storytellers would only speak of it in hushed tones around dying fires. Long ago, Awendela had been a medicine woman of great power. She could heal the sick, speak to animals, and read the future in smoke and stars. But power corrupts, and Awendela's heart grew dark with envy when a younger woman in her village began to show even greater gifts. In her jealousy, Awendela poisoned the girl and tried to steal her power through forbidden rituals. The spirits were furious. They cursed Awendela to walk the earth forever, never to rest, never to die, always hungry for what she could never have, the warmth of human connection, the peace of death, the forgiveness she would never receive. Her body began to change. Her fingers grew long and twisted like roots. Her eyes turned the color of stagnant water. Her voice became the sound of wind through hollow bones. For 2 millennia, she haunted the marshes, appearing only when someone ventured too close to her domain. She would call out in voices of loved ones, luring the lost deeper into the swamp. Those who followed never returned, at least not all of them. Sometimes, days later, their bodies would be found drained of blood, their faces frozen in expressions of unspeakable terror, strange symbols carved into their skin. When the English colonists arrived in 1587, the Croatan people tried to warn them. Governor John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, listened to these warnings, but the other colonists dismissed them as savage superstition. They built their settlement, planted their crops, and ignored the uneasy feeling that settled over the island like morning mist. Eleanor had recently given birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. She spent her days caring for her infant daughter, trying to ignore the way the trees seemed to watch her, the way shadows moved when they shouldn't, the way she sometimes heard a woman singing in a language she'd never heard but somehow understood, songs about loneliness, about hunger, about 2,000 years of waiting. One autumn evening, as fog rolled in from the sea, Eleanor heard her baby crying. She rushed to the cradle, but Virginia was gone. In her place lay a small bundle of bones tied with grass, and carved into the cradle's wood was a symbol, a spiral within a spiral, the mark the Croatan had warned them about. Awendela had taken her daughter. Eleanor didn't think. She didn't call for help. A mother's instinct drove her into the western marshes, following the sound of Virginia's cries. The fog grew thicker with each step, and soon she was lost in a gray world where nothing looked familiar. The cries led her deeper and deeper, past twisted trees that seemed to reach for her, through pools of dark water that reflected no light, over ground that felt soft and unstable beneath her feet. Then she saw her, a figure standing in the mist, holding Virginia in arms that were too long, too thin, too wrong. Awendela's face was beautiful and terrible at once, ageless and ancient, with eyes that held the weight of 20 centuries. "Give me back my daughter," Eleanor demanded, though her voice shook. Awendela smiled, revealing teeth like shards of flint. "Your daughter," she whispered in a voice like wind through a graveyard. "I have walked this earth for 2,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched the stars wheel overhead century after century. Alone, always alone. Do you know what it is to be so lonely that you would tear the world apart just to feel something again?" "I don't care about your pain," Eleanor said, stepping forward. "Give her back." "No one cares," Awendela hissed, her beautiful face contorting into something monstrous. "No one has cared for 2,000 years. But this child, she is new. She is innocent. Perhaps if I raise her as my own, I can finally feel something other than this endless hunger." Eleanor saw the madness in those ancient eyes. the desperation of someone who had been cursed to walk the earth far too long. And in that moment, she understood that begging would be useless. Awendela had forgotten mercy 2,000 years ago, so Eleanor did something unexpected. She began to sing. It was a lullaby her own mother had sung to her, a simple English tune about stars and sleep and safety. Her voice was clear and sweet, cutting through the fog like a blade. Awendela froze, the baby still in her arms, and for the first time in 2 millennia, tears began to fall from her eyes. "I remember," Awendela whispered, "before the curse, before the darkness. Someone sang to me once, I was loved once. Then you remember what it is to be human," Eleanor said softly, still singing between her words. "You remember what you're taking from me. You remember what was taken from you." For a long moment, Awendela stood perfectly still, centuries of loneliness and pain warring with the faint echo of who she had once been. Then, slowly, she extended her twisted arms and placed Virginia back in Eleanor's hands. "Go," Awendela said, her voice breaking. "Go and never return. Raise her well. Love her. Give her everything I can never have." Eleanor clutched her daughter and turned to flee, but Awendela's voice stopped her. "But know this, Eleanor Dare, your people have not listened to the warnings. They will not respect this land or its spirits. And I am not the only darkness that hunts these marshes. When I come again, and I will come again, I will not be alone. Your colony will vanish as if it never existed. Only the word Croatan carved into a tree will remain, a warning that no one will understand." Eleanor ran, her baby in her arms, following some instinct back through the fog to the settlement. When she arrived at dawn, exhausted and covered in marsh mud, she tried to tell the others what had happened. They didn't believe her. They said she had wandered off in a fever dream, that she had been sleepwalking, that the baby had been in her cradle all along. But Eleanor knew the truth, and 3 years later, when her father, Governor White, returned from England to find the colony completely abandoned, every man, woman, and child gone without a trace, only one word carved into a post, Croatan, Eleanor was among the vanished. Some say that on foggy autumn nights, if you venture into the marshes of Roanoke Island, you can still hear Awendela singing. Her voice carries across 2,000 years of loneliness, calling, always calling, for someone to ease her eternal curse. And if you listen carefully, you might hear other voices too, the voices of the lost colony, trapped forever in her domain, paying the price for trespassing where they were warned never to go. The Croatan people never speak of what happened to the colonists, but they know. They've always known, and they still stay away from the western marshes after dark, because Awendela, the bone woman, the witch of Roanoke, still walks there after 2,000 years, still hungry, still waiting, still calling out in the voices of those we love. The end.